Good morning and welcome to the Brazilian American Chamber of Commerce's discussion on the future of open banking in Brazil. Today, João Manoel Pinho de Mello, Deputy Governor for Licensing and Resolution at the Central Bank of Brazil, is going to give us his views. And then we're going to have a discussion between Vinicius Carrasco, Chief Economist at Stone Company, and Thiago Alvarez, the founder, and of course, all of you. They join us for this very timely discussion. Thank you all for attending, and we would also like to especially thank Mattos Filho Advogados for sponsoring and helping organizing this event. I am John Welch, the Executive Director of the Brazilian American Chamber, and on behalf of the Chamber, we wish you all health and safety in this difficult time. With the digitalization of e-commerce and current gaps in payment methods, instant payments represent a new arrangement within many financial systems. The Central Bank of Brazil recently launched PIX, its new instant payment system, which allows 24/7 transactions in real time between different institutions without the use of debit or credit cards. It is through PIX that all wallets that use QR codes will be interoperable, meaning payments will be allowed from one e-wallet to another in real time, greatly speeding up and simplifying transactions. Thank you all for joining us for this great panel. Our moderator today is Larissa Arruy, partner Mattos Filho, where she focuses on matters related to banking, payment methods, capital markets, and technology, with emphasis on regulations issued by the Central Bank and the Brazilian Securities Commissioner, the CVM. She counsels financial and payment institutions, fintechs, market infrastructure, among other market players on a wide range of matters, including regulatory consultancy, approval applications, electronic platforms and digital businesses, international investment and foreign exchange, derivatives, compliance, and administrative procedures. Ms. Arruy has received numerous noteworthy awards, which are too numerous to mention right now, and she holds a Bachelor's of Arts from the Universidade de São Paulo, USP, and a specialization in business administration from the Fundação Getúlio Vargas. You can find Larissa's and all the panelists' full bios on the link provided on the reminder sent out yesterday and on the Chamber website. Before we begin, I would also ask you to please use the Q&A tab for your questions. You can make them at any time, and we will look to answer them after the panel discussion during the Q&A period. Thank you, Larissa.
Thank you, John. Good morning, everyone. It's a great honor to moderate the panel with some of the main authorities in open banking in Brazil. Our panelists today are João Manoel Pinho de Mello, who is the Director of Central Bank, responsible for the organization of the financial system. Before joining the Central Bank, João Manoel was the Secretary of the Economy Ministry for Economic Policy and Productive and Competition Promotion. He has a long career in the academia and currently teaches at INSPER. João Manoel has a PhD in economy at Stanford University, a master in economy by the Pontifícia Universidade Católica of Rio de Janeiro, and graduated in public administration at Fundação Getúlio Vargas. We also have here Vinicius Carrasco, who is a partner and the head economist of Stone & Co. Before joining Stone, Vinicius was Director of Planning and Research at BNDES, the Brazilian Development Bank. He's also a member of the academia and teaches at the economy department at PUC Rio de Janeiro. Vinicius also has a PhD in economy at Stanford University. Last but not least, Thiago Alvarez, who is the CEO and founder of Guia Bolso, one of the entities that is changing the Brazilian financial market. Before founding Guia Bolso, Thiago was a senior manager at McKinsey, and he has been the finance director for Alfabetização Solidária, a UNESCO project. Both Thiago and Vinicius are members of the Open Banking Committee, the group that is preparing the self-regulation for open banking in Brazil. For those who are not familiar with this matter, open banking is a set of rules and infrastructure for sharing information between regulated entities that is an initiative of the Brazilian Central Bank based on projects that are going in different jurisdictions, and that will allow financial institutions, payment institutions, and other regulated entities to reduce the informational gap that we currently have in the Brazilian market. And based on that, to offer financial products and services to their clients in a more adequate condition. With no further ado, I will now transfer the floor to Mr. João Manoel for his presentation. João, thank you for being here today with us.
Thanks a lot, Larissa. I would like to just thank the Brazilian American Chamber of Commerce and Mattos Filho for putting this together. I'm honored. And I'd like to salute Professor Vinicius Carrasco and Thiago Alvarez, who are great partners here in this venture towards improving efficiency, digitalization, and competition in the Brazilian financial system and the Brazilian payments system. I will share screen here. I'll briefly talk about the Pix, the new instant payment platform that we've launched a little less than a month ago. So the quick overview of the presentation. I'll just say what Pix is, say why the Brazilian central bank decided to take the lead and develop both operationally and from a regulatory perspective the instant payment platform. I will talk about some of Pix's main features and then describe what the central bank role is in this ecosystem. I'll outline the main benefits that we believe Pix will bring to Brazilian consumers of payments and present some of the figures of the current operation. So Pix is just, it's a new means of payment. We do have, which is like the payment scheme owner, in this case, it is a central bank and it's operated by the central bank. Just to put it in a more general context, obviously there are several other payment methods in Brazil. Let's say notably cash, which is another payment scheme owned by the central bank, possibly the most traditional one, for social, economic, and demographic reasons. Cash is still widely used in Brazil. I always say that the central bank, as the monetary authority, will never shy away from supplying the means of payment cash if demand for cash is there, such as it did happen this year. But our goal is steadily, but firmly and over the next years to digitalize payments and reduce the use of cash. Cash is very expensive to handle. And it's very costly for society. We do have better, more efficient means of payment to substitute away from cash. But again, we will provide cash as long as there is demand for it. We also have a list of successful electronic means of payments. We have a very still flourishing and ebullient plastic industry. I mean, prepaid credit cards, debit cards, which has provided an invaluable service to Brazilian society. We do have electronic means of paying bills, we call boleto bancário. This means of payments have provided an invaluable service, but there is always room for improvement. PIX is a new payment method, which we believe fill in some of the gaps of the current both physical and electronic means of payment. Just a little bit of context. Obviously, PIX leverages operationally from an infrastructure that has already been built, which is cellular telephony. Without cellular telephony, you wouldn't be able to leverage a new instant payment method as cheaply as we have done it. At the same time, as I said, we have, so on the, let's say, supply production side, it leverages on the cellular telephony infrastructure. On the opportunity side, we have a tremendous opportunity to improve efficiency by structurally and steadily reducing the use of currency, hard currency, cash, physical currency, and also an opportunity to fill in some of these gaps. So this is the context in which we thought PIX would be a valuable service to society. So why has the central bank decided to lead the project? In fact, since at least 2015, the central bank has tried to, how can I put it, stimulate, if not induce, its private counterparts to come up with a privately led instant payment solution. After a few years, the central bank came to the conclusion that because of coordination problems, the private sector would possibly not deliver this infrastructure as speedily as the needs of the Brazilian society demand. So in order to solve this coordination problem, the central bank decided to both operate the settlement and aliases database systems and take the lead in terms of being, let's say, the payment owner, the payment scheme owner. I've talked about cash and electronic, PIX being a new means of payment. Then I talked a little bit about from the operational side that we're leveraging on cellular telephony, meaning that the POSs are already into people's hands. Then I set up on the opportunity side the tremendous saves to society in reducing the use of cash and in filling in some of the gaps that other electronic payments, which have been providing an invaluable service to Brazilian society, but there's room for improvement and gaps that can be filled. PIX has 7 main features. Several other means of payments have some of these features. We believe that taking them all together, PIX becomes pretty unique. First, speed. I mean, it's an instant payment initiative, so PIX will be instant. Our service order here is that 99% of transactions have to be settled within 10 seconds and 50% have to be settled within 6 seconds. We are currently averaging a little less than 2 seconds. Availability. PIX is not only instant, but it's available 24/7 year-round. So evidently for convenience It's almost self-evident its value to be available 24/7. For several business models, it's crucial. Availability round the clock. Security. PIX is at least as safe as at least as safe as the safest means of payment in Brazil. It's been constructed. It's been co-designed with market participants using state-of-the-art anti-fraud procedures on the one hand. On the other hand, it's been built without legacy. So we can, using the best knowledge, leapfrog to the very frontier of what is best in terms of security. Let me just, sorry. One important thing to notice here is that there are several layers of security. There are layers of security between users, meaning payers and payees, and their payment service providers, banks, fintechs, credit unions. PIX, in that layer, PIX is mostly, it's not in all cases, but it's a vast majority of cases, PIX a PIX transaction is done in a logged in, authenticated environment, meaning you go into your bank's or your fintech's app and you get authenticated. Between the payment service providers, be it the payer or payee, and the central bank operates an infrastructure for settlement and for financial and informational settlement. I'll make this distinction a little clearer down the road. It's the central bank operating with a long experience in operating settlement platforms and other important payment platforms, such as platforms for monetary policy and for exchange rate transactions, and exchange rate policy, which has been used in tests for almost 20 years now. Totally safe. Hasn't been, during all these years, there has never been anything anywhere close to a successful cyber attack on the central bank. PIX has several additional safety features that are unique to it. For instance, on the payee side, on the payment service provider for the payee side. So imagine, I like this example. Imagine someone opens a payment account or a bank or a current or demand account for demand deposits to be the recipient of a fraudulent scheme that is perpetrated by criminals. If that happens, let's say in the previous status quo, it can always happen. The bank, as soon as it notices that this bank account is receiving suspicious payments, it puts a sort of like a red flag on this account. If we're talking about the current status quo, non-PIX, that information that account is flagged is restricted to the financial institution or the payment institution in which the account is. In PIX is different. Once the account is flagged because of the centralized nature of how information flows in PIX, the whole system, all participants will observe that that account is flagged, so that you can block a transaction. The payment service provider by the payer can actually block this transaction because that payment service provider will observe that the account to which the payment will be sent is under fraud suspicion. That's in terms of safety, that's a game changer for cyber frauds. Convenience. PIX will be very easy to use. How can we guarantee that? We are the payment scheme owner, and there is a user experience manual that has to be followed by participants. More specifically, initiation of payment by PIX, which can be done by an alias, such as your social security number, which aliases are here to identify the payee, okay, whoever's going to receive the money. It's not something to identify the payer. Some people, there's a little confusion. Oh, this will identify me and someone will be able to get into my account and transfer the money. No. The alias, or as we say, the key, identifies whoever is receiving a payment. Which, by the way, you're identified today by all this information that you have to, input when you're going to receive a bank wire transfer, such as equivalent like ABA number, branch number, or whatever, a bunch of information. Here is very simple, just one alias: your email, your phone number, or social security number, or a QR code. Now, but the user experience is regulated by the payment scheme owner, which is a central bank. So the icon has to be in the first page of the app. There's a certain number of steps, that maximum number of steps to complete the transaction, so that we can guarantee convenience. Multiple use cases. PIX is a very flexible platform that will over which multiple cases can be built. P2P, which has already taken off spectacularly, but also P2B, payment to businesses, merchants, and restaurants. B2B and payments to government. We have already launched several, for instance, initiatives, for instance, to onboarding PIX QR code for paying electricity bill, for paying telephone bills, for paying government fees. The market is coming up with solutions for paying taxes, and the market is coming up with solutions to onboarding P2B and P2M here in a very seamless way. Sixth, what we call enriched information. What we mean by enriched information is not only the transaction is settled instantaneously, the financial transaction, but information about that financial transaction also settles, in a certain sense. Sorry about the poetic liberty here, but the information also settles instantly. So you pay your electricity bill, you have your electricity, your service cut because of non-payment. Now, if you pay that with PIX, not only the utility will receive the money instantaneously, but it will receive the information that transaction was settled instantaneously, so that the order to turn it on can be sent immediately. This is just one of many examples that I could provide here to, and that obviously the fact that all the information flows instantaneously helps automation, helps inventory management, which is crucial for e-commerce. So think about e-commerce, you pay, for instance, in Brazil, when you pay using boleto, the merchant has to put aside the merchandise and wait a couple of days so that the payment is clear and then sent. So with Pix, this is all instantaneously, more safer, better for the buyer, better for the merchant. Obviously helps conciliation, integration. Last but not least, Pix is an open environment. Pix is a platform, and it has been already clear that the fact that we built it open, and it was built from scratch, and is built to be pro-competitive, the registration of the aliases or the keys has already shown, in my opinion, quite persuasively that the deck is being reshuffled in terms of payments. You just have to look at, what are the different market shares of payment institutions, fintechs, traditional banks, credit unions in registering aliases and doing transactions in Pix, and what it is for financial intermediation in general. We have no less than 735 participants, PSPs here and service providers. And they're some special settlement agents. It's a tremendous success in terms of fostering competition. Again, very briefly, central bank's role, I think roles here. I think I've already touched the issue, but the central bank will have has an operational role. It operates two platforms, a financial settlement platform, which is the SPI, Sistema de Pagamentos Instantâneos, and what I call the information settlement platform, the DICT, which is the aliases database. The name in Portuguese is Diretório de Identificadores de Contas Transacionais. On the other hand, the central bank also operates as the payment scheme owner. So it regulates this means of payment, which establishes the rules for participation. Again, Pix is a co-designed product between the central bank and market participants, with a very clear and solid governance body, which is Fórum Pix, and also using the traditional public consultation mechanisms that the central bank uses. I'll skip to this. I think the benefits I've outlined. Pix is very, very low cost. We're providing the aliases database and the financial settlement at marginal cost. So roughly, from a cost perspective, the central bank will not provide service directly to end users, payers and payees. It provides this platform so that the market participants, payment service providers, fintechs, banks, credit unions, will use this platform to provide payment service to end users. In this lag between the central bank and the payment service providers, Pix will cost basically a tenth of a centavo of real. It's really, really cheap. So a cheap infrastructure and competition is a well-proven strategy to deliver good services at low cost to end users. By regulatory imposition, P2Ps are free of charge. On the payer side, if you're not a business, you'll never pay in Pix, just as you don't pay for credit card and debit card transactions. We have a long evolving agenda which involves the cashback with Pix for retailers, what we call the payer QR code, so that for a big chunk of the Brazilian population that does not have access to that generous data plans, so that you can have your QR code, your payer QR code in your cell phone, also in a logged environment, to be recognized as a payer. What we call guaranteed peaks, so that financial institutions, payment institutions can provide a service that, I'm going to schedule that 10 pixels, and I, as the payer service provider, will guarantee those 10 pixels regardless of the status of the payment or the current account. Direct debit split. There's NFC, which is near field communication, initiation by API using Pix, which is jointly with the Open Bank initiative. Just a few of the numbers. On Monday, we had a little less than 105 million aliases registered. That represents a little over 42 million persons, over 2.7 million companies already registered to be recognized as Pix's recipients using aliases, either cell phone number or QR code or your email address. It's by any measure a big success. In terms of number of transactions and value, we are, especially in terms of number of transactions, we're quickly approaching 40% of what is settled in terms of between 30 and 40% of what is settled in terms of bank wire transactions in Brazil with 3 weeks of operation, which we didn't have any quantitative goal to start with, but by any standard, this is a major success. Thanks a lot. Sorry for the verbosity here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Diretor João Manoel, for this great presentation and introduction. It is clear that PIX, together with open banking, are the main regulatory initiatives currently being implemented in Brazil, both of an area for payments and financial services for the following years. The open banking implementation, for those who don't know, will be directly connected to the PIX initiative in its third phase, which will allow regulated entities to command payments on behalf of their clients. It's been more than 2 years of discussions before getting at the current stage, in which PIX and open banking are already a reality. Diretor João Manoel explained to us the process for the development of PIX. So I would now ask Thiago and Vinicius if they can comment on the open banking initiatives and the challenges that the market had to overcome so far to get us where we are.
So who starts, Thiago or myself?
I think you can start, Vinicius.
I'll take the lead then. So first of all, it's a great honor to be here. So thanks to the Brazilian American Chamber of Commerce. Thanks to my friend John Welch for hosting us. Thanks Mattos Filho and Larissa. It's a pleasure to take part of this section. So greetings to Deputy Governor Pinho de Mello, to my colleague Thiago Alvarez. So it's really great to talk about all the regulatory innovations that we've been seeing over the last years. So I guess open banking combines two things. So I'll be very brief so Thiago can comment on what I say. with more property. So I guess open banking is a combination of the possibility of data sharing. So the recognition that the data belongs to users, not banks or any institutions to which the users are connected to. So, and the fact that you, being the owner of the data, you can share the data to whoever you want. So I guess this is the first part, the first, leg of what open banking is. The second one refers to infrastructure. You need an infrastructure to implement such data sharing, So as an example, we have in Brazil since the early 2000s, I guess it was under Arminio Fraga's tenure at Central Bank, we have a portability rule for registration data. And it has not been really implemented because we don't have an infrastructure to implement that regulation. So we have, for instance, a credit portability regulation for, those who take loans. And it hasn't been implemented fully because we don't have an infrastructure, or who owns the infrastructure is not really one who is eager to foster such regulation. So the infrastructure part of the open banking is very, very important. So this is what's being discussed right now. So how to build this infrastructure in a standardized way and in a way that access is provided. So what Deputy Governor Pinho de Mello spoke about PIX is about mainly access, an open platform in which everyone can plug and make payments using an essential facility that is provided by the central bank. So we have this infrastructure, which is an essential facility. So it's natural that a neutral agent such as the bank, such as the central bank, provides that infrastructure. And also we have rules that are neutral and also established by a non-interested player. Central bank again. I think the combination of these two things is very, very important for regulations to foster and to really pick up. So I guess the central bank, through its open bank regulations, being very wise in first setting the rules that allow the data owners, ourselves, to share the data to whoever we want. Forcing in a way that the infrastructure is open and with access to everyone who is an authorized institution, but whoever is an authorized institution will be able to have access to such an infrastructure. And at the same time, such as happened with PIX, in which some sort of interaction with players took place, we have, through this self-regulation entity that you mentioned, we have this process of learning from private players, banks, fintechs, payment institutions, and so on and so forth. What is really needed to implement this infrastructure at the fastest pace and in a way that really the regulation has effect. So I guess we're combining all that is needed, the recognition that the data is the users, building an infrastructure, and have the governance decided by means of the central bank taking part of it, and also learning from private agents what is needed for the regulation to succeed. I think that's being very well designed.
Yeah, just adding to what Vinicius said, and by the way, thank you for the invitation. It's also a pleasure to be here. But adding to what Vinicius said, and to what João mentioned before, the way I see this is that we're almost like changing the pipes for the financial system, right? We're changing all the pipes, all the infrastructure. The thing is, clients usually don't see that. Consumers don't usually see that firsthand. They see what's the product that you build on top of it, right? And the different applications. And the way I see it is these new pipes are much faster, much more reliable. They allow you to transfer data. They allow you to transfer money as well. So it reduces the gap of information, of course. but also of convenience, right? Because there is an asymmetry of convenience as well in the banking system, where usually if you're a client of bank A, you're kind of tied to that bank A, even if someone else is providing you a better service, or actually they're saying that they offer you a better service, or probably even a lower interest rate. If it's not convenient for you to transfer your money to that institution, transfer your relationship to that financial institution, usually you end up sticking to your traditional. So there's kind of a lock-in effect as well. And I think this new pipes and this new infrastructure changes the game completely, because it's much more convenient for you to migrate your relationship, all your information, even your money to this different and new competitors. So I think it's a great way to, instead of creating specific and very narrow down applications, what the central bank decided is to actually change the infrastructure so you can build on top many different things. The way I usually look at it, it's almost like internet, right? It's hard for you to explain what the internet is, and if I was explaining what the internet was in early 90s, was really hard. But at the same time, when you came email, you saw the browser, you saw the different applications, you suddenly understand what the internet means and what's capable of doing, right? And I think open banking, it's very similar. You change the infrastructure, you change the pipes, but at the same time, what will really change the lives of consumers and the financial system are the applications that you build on top of it. And they are going to be built on top of it through time as well. So I think in having the markets decide kind of like the standards and all that with the oversight of the central bank, I think was a very interesting and smart decision as well.
I think certainly innovation is one of the key pillars for the regulatory agenda, at least since 2016 with the BC Plus and now the BC Hash. And those two great initiatives are the main aspect of that. And I expect we will see other developments along the next few years. What is the impact of that for the competition in the financial sector in Brazil? I think we have been seen as one of the countries that for several years have worked with a lot of concentration in the financial system. And I think together with innovation, competition seems to be one of the key elements of the debate right now. So I think that Director João Manoel mentioned that in his speech, and I think this is also part of the comments that Thiago and Vinicius made. So can you comment on how those initiatives will impact competition for Brazilian market? Maybe we can start with Director João Manoel and then go to Thiago and Vinicius.
Sure. We expect in both sense of the word, meaning that we predict and we hope that not only PIX and open banking, but the whole BC hashtag agenda with its many pro-competitive initiatives will foster competition. So, yeah, but that answer is at a very high level of generality. Let me go down to earth. Give you a couple of examples, and I'll pick up where Thiago left. There is this survey that was conducted in the United Kingdom about the use of fintechs, and they've concluded that while fintechs and digital banks were penetrating the market, consumers were reluctant in giving up their traditional bank operation. And the reason And one of the main reasons is quite simple, quite trivial. There, just as somewhat how it is here, it's much easier to pay a utility bill if you're already plugged into one of the, the largest, more traditional operations. So, if I have to, I would like to, if I move, obviously the consumer is sovereign, so you don't choose anything, but it's very plausible that if you move, you want to move the whole thing and not being operating. So basically people are experimenting with some of the services, very good services that this fintechs provide, but at the same time they kept their old banking relationship because of convenience. So in Pix, when you onboard automatic debit, but mostly the QR code on the utilities bills, you are just going to level the playing field there. Leveling the playing field has something related to what Professor Carrasco just said. It's about access. If access is about leveling the playing field in terms of access, in one case in terms of access to a platform that provides multi-use conveniences. In the case of open banking, access to a platform that gives access to information. Just let's be totally clear about sharing information in open banking. As Professor Carrasco has just said, the equivalent of our general data protection directive in Brazil, the LGPD, has celebrated the principle that individuals or companies, they own their data so that they can share it. The discussion will be about the infrastructure for sharing, how the consent is given, is obtained, because this data has to be, it's consent-based, okay? It's, given the level of data that will be shared in open banking. And this is, the central bank has decided on certain governance that I believe has been very successful in determining this, how this access will take place, both in terms of rules and operationally, so that competition will flow.
Yeah, just adding to what João Manoel said, the way I think about the open banking and competition is that the way to compete in Brazil in the banking system many years ago was through branches and through physical access, right? You needed a physical presence, large number of branches and all across Brazil and all that. And you can see what happened in the end. That we ended up having 5 big banks, 2 other banks, HSBC and Citibank, actually left Brazil on the retail side because it was really hard to compete through that kind of access. But then again, you come to a new paradigm where you actually, everything is digital. You can have a digital relationship without requiring the access of physical presence and anything like that. But at the same time, only digital with the old pipes, it's kind of a suboptimal still way to compete, because you need to withdraw cash, right? We still use cash. And if you're relying on a physical presence to distribute that cash, it's hard to compete against someone that actually has the ATM networks, control all the cash distribution. It's hard for you to underwrite and give credit to a customer which is new to you and you don't have any information about him, except that he's not the only thing you know in Brazil is, yes, this guy is paying his bills, so he's not in the blacklist. Now you have the positive bureau information, which gives you a better score, but still you don't know what's the income of that person, how much he spends, what's his cash flow like. So you can actually underwrite and give him a good credit limit, for example, give him interest rates that are accurate to his risk profile, and actually move his money around as well. So for example, if you decide to give credit to him, but at the same time he still has his traditional bank account, like João said, he didn't migrate his full relationship, this person will have to use invoice or now Pix, but he still has to go through the hassle of paying that those installments for the credit line that he got. So it's very inconvenient for you to, and very hard for you to compete, even in a digital first bank or product with the traditional and the old pipelines, let's say the old pipes. So having open banking, having Pix changes the whole game, because now you can onboard. So the KYC, you can do an automatic KYC because you can pull his KYC information. You can give him the right credit line because you know his behavior in the other bank. You can actually now do the automatic debit because you have Pix. So it changes completely the landscape for competition. It makes the products much better, the new competitors much more at par in competing against the incumbents.
Great. So I guess both Deputy Governor Pinho de Mello and Thiago emphasized the infrastructure part of your question, Larissa. I'm going to move to another direction, so to add on what they said. So I guess the first point, I read a very interesting article by former Governor Ilan Goldfein a couple of weeks ago, John's colleague, much as mine, back in the days we were studying economics. And he was saying that, you know, the Agenda BC Plus, the Agenda BC Hash, is much more something about framing than something new. So there's a piling of initiatives that started back in 2010 and that were kind of crowned in 2013 with the changes legislation that, you know, empowered the central bank to regulate payments in Brazil, that led to a huge increase in competition. So payments is a very good example of what happens when you have good regulation, good rules, and you provide access. So I guess we're moving now, as Thiago and Deputy Governor Pinho de Mello mentioned, to providing infrastructures, providing the essential facility. But in terms of rules, in terms of direction, we've been along this way much before the new framing of these initiatives, which took place during Goldfein's tenure with Agenda BC Plus, and is followed by Governors Campos Neto and his team with Agenda BC hashtag. So I guess payments are a very good example of what can happen when you open markets. So the way merchants, the variety of means by which merchants can accept payments, how cheaper it is to accept electronic payments compared to 2010, and the variety of services that were coupled with these payment services is something that's really an example of what can happen when you open up markets, when you have good rules, when you allow for access. So, and there's some stuff that I guess not even the central bank would imagine when they started to set this new rules, this set of rules. Started to try and have a say on the governance of how payments are made in Brazil. So it allows in a way, it allowed in a way a form of entry. So Thiago mentioned that a couple of competitors, foreign competitors in banking left the country. And often one hears that, you know, spreads are large in Brazil, but this has nothing to do with competition. If it had to do with competition, why such banks would leave the country? And the second question that's often made is, if spreads are large, why no one enters in this market? But has had a lot of entry lately, and the entry is taking place through Trojan horses. So players that started providing payment services are now moving to credit, are now moving to insurance, are now moving to a myriad of services related to financial needs of their customers. So opening up payments allowed for entry in many other services that's taking place. I guess this move towards providing essential facilities, infrastructures, will enhance this process. And for loans and spreads. So one thing that I would like to mention is that this kind of activity is very, dependent on information, on data. So in order to provide credit, you need to learn what was the history of repayments of, those who took those loans, the capability of these guys making repayments, and so on and so forth. This is information. And in a market in which you have more information than I have, you have a huge advantage. So if I am to bid for a customer and I win with less information than you have, that's a curse for me. This is bad news for me. So in markets in which information matters, winning with less information is a curse. So yesterday there was a Nobel lecture by Paul Milgram that started his career talking about ways to mitigate the winner's curse in auctions. So one way to mitigate winner's curse in auctions is to provide information. So open banking will allow for this provision of information. This will reduce winner's curse, and this will make everyone to bid more aggressively for customers with better services, with lower spreads, and so on and so forth. So I guess a shining word awaits for us.
That's very, very exciting to hear. I think all of you touched on the point of cost and price, and Director João Manoel mentioned the cost for PIX in his presentation, which tends to be very small. And you also mentioned that for open banking, this initiative, once it will allow players to have better information, may impact the price of the transactions. Is this what we should expect? Better services with a lower cost for users in the following years? Is that the main economic impact that those initiatives are going to have to the market? Maybe Vinicius, you can also comment on that. Yes, and then move forward to the others.
So again, Deputy Governor Pinho de Mello listed the players that are connected to the infrastructure of PIX. So hundreds of them, right? So again, we're building these pipes, that, to use the expression used by Thiago, to allow for data sharing in a broader set of services. So data is a fundamental input to compete when you extend a loan. So again, if a bank has more information than I have regarding a potential, borrower, if I make a very aggressive bid for that borrower and I win, this should be bad news for me. So I know less about that borrower. If I'm being very aggressive and if I take that client, it means that I made a stupid move. So information is really, really important for fostering competition in credits. And access to infrastructure will allow more players. Again, the more players you have, the more competition. Open infrastructures allow for marginal costs which are lower to access that data. So in a way, it's another force towards lower prices. So you have a lower cost to use an infrastructure. You have more competitors. This is yet another force for more competition. And you have access to a very fundamental input to do what you need to do. So I guess these three dimensions will be really inductive of a lot of competition, and as a consequence, lower prices and better services, more quantity, more credit. So we talk about productivity. Productivity is about potentially, investing more in good projects, taking projects with positive present value. And if the credit market doesn't work, these projects won't take place. So I guess lower prices, better services, more quantity of credit, more growth.
Maybe Director João Manoel may also comment on that from the central bank's perspective.
I have to confess, I had some technical difficulty. I could listen to
Sure.
Professor Carrasco here, but I could not listen to your question. Now I can.
I'll be happy to repeat. I was mentioning that in your presentation, you said that Pix is going to have a very low cost to the market. It's having actually a very low cost to the users, and I think both Thiago and Vinicius have reinforced that this is expected in relation to open banking also. So my question was that, is that the greatest benefits that we will have from those initiatives, better services for a smaller cost? Should we expect that?
Yes, that's the goal. The mechanisms through which this will take place are evidently if you have cheap access to an essential facility or a crucial platform. You as a service provider, again, I want to emphasize this. In the case of Pix, also open banking, but it's clear in the case of Pix, the Brazilian Central Bank does not provide any service to direct users. It provides a backbone. So as Thiago said, the pipes. So one of these mechanisms is that the pipes are efficient and cheap. Another is, and has been mentioned here, is equal access to the pipes. And the third one is that the pipes pretty much reach everywhere. Reaching everywhere is the concrete example is the one that I just gave on utilities bills. The pipeline has to be able to make it such that it's as convenient to pay your utility bills anywhere. Now, today is basically an invoice with Pix QR code and an automatic debit in Pix. Anyone will be able to replicate whatever convenience some players have today. The payment service provider will easily be able to provide that service. And there are many. So cheap and efficient backbone, equal access to the backbone, and making sure that the backbone reaches everywhere. And this is in the case of Pix is this aspect of being a multifunctional and multi-use platform, so that you can as a service provider, you can reach a large and diverse market just using this platform. In Pix, everybody's sort of acquired in a certain sense. If you're thinking about the payment industry lingo, and that would be a big plus. With open banking, it's just flowing and sharing of information. That's the main mechanism. Obviously, the governance of open banking and the process that will take place will decide on crucial operational and institutional features. I would say details, but that would underestimate the importance of these features. How is reimbursement of whatever cost that you believe that may be reimbursed? How is it done? How is the consent obtained? All this will determine the equal access to the informational platform. And this is why the governance has been built to represent, to be representative of the diversity of players that are in the Brazilian market right now. And just to quickly finalize, and picking up on Professor Carrasco's point, we view many of the segments that we can call financial intermediation in general as connected. Capital markets have its exchanges with credit markets. Payments can outflow into credit markets and capital markets and insurance markets. And the trend that is will be even ever more connected in the future. So that's why we have this holistic approach to addressing issues on all the segments. Thanks.
Thiago, any additional comments on that point?
Yeah, yeah, I think it's quite evident that the prices should go down and will go down to consumers. I think one living proof is actually Guiabolso in the sense that we provide credit lines to consumers that share their banking information with us. And we know for a fact that our credit scores are much better than traditional credit scores because we have access to that data. And if we compare a traditional credit score versus our credit scores, it's usually like 15 points higher. That means that we can give credit to more people and give lower interest rates as well to really good consumers. I think something that's actually very interesting that we can prove as well is that there is a lot of elasticity of demand for credit. I think that's usually thought as not being the case, but whenever we tweak interest rates in our platform and lower the interest rates, we do see demand going up a lot. And that's because in our case, the consumers have an option, right? Because they are already consumers from a traditional bank, from a traditional institution. So they have the credit line there, and they have our partners in our platform as an option. So they can actually go compare, and they do that. My point here, I think we do see evidence of elasticity of demand. We do see evidence of a better credit score, more accurate credit score, better credit policies based on that, better financial products as well, because I can give you a credit line, but if the limit is not right, I'm not giving you the amount that you actually would want to use, and it's not really worth it, right? But again, open banking, I don't think it's only about data and reducing the asymmetry of information, but it's also reducing the asymmetry of convenience. I think that's really, really important because, again, I can show you a better interest rate through a partner of ours, but if it's a long process for you to actually onboard, do the KYC, do the payments, you will stick to your old institution, even knowing that it charges you a higher cost, a higher price for the product. So reducing the lack of convenience is something very interesting that the open banking will do, given that you can share your KYC information and you can actually do automatic debit after that. So I think that's there are like a lot of different points and different things that we can prove actually to everybody that yes, that kind of information, that asymmetry of convenience, reducing all that will lead to lower interest rates, and not just for the challengers, but for the incumbents as well. Because if they know that a consumer has now a bank account in Bank B, Bank A might be willing to, and he knows that the client is a good client and all that, he may be interested in actually lowering the prices before being attacked. So it might be the case that you'll see some preemptive action from the incumbents in terms of lowering price of products and all that as well.
I think we are all very interested about seeing this development and the impacts that it will have to the market and for us, the users. We started receiving some questions from the audience. We have a great one in relation to the users, actually. So for the PIX initiative, based on the information that is already available, do we know if the users are traditional bank clients, or if we also have new users that didn't have access to financial services before? And I will add to that question to a comment in relation to open banking. Do we also expect open banking to bring to new users to the financial system? I think maybe we can start with Director João Manoel to comment on PIX, and then hear from Thiago and Vinicius about how they expect to see new users using open banking.
Thanks. Well, remembering that for using PIX, both for making a payment, making and receiving payments, you need to have a transactional account, meaning that you need to have a bank account or a payment account or an account with your at a credit union. So in this very strict sense of the word, those are people that had accounts. I think your question would go more, the way that I interpret it is, do we see in the data that people that are using PIX are those that didn't have, for instance, the long credit history or whatever that is? One, I think it's a little early to make that assessment, meaning that the system is operating at full for, I know it's the fourth week. So I think it would be a little hasty. We are still finding the patterns of PIX. We are learning what patterns are, within seasonality, within the week, within the month and across weeks. So it's a little early. Obviously, we could, remembering that all data, there's a tremendous amount of data protection in PIX. So that might limit the amount of analysis that one can do, because we have to be absolutely sure that data privacy is totally guaranteed here. In any event, I think it would be a little early to say on the PIX side. We need more data and more time.
I guess on bringing more participants to the financial system, again, payments can be a very good example. So back in 2009, only a handful of merchants used to accept credit cards. So it was very expensive. Only 2 providers. You had to have the 2 POSs because there was an exclusivity contract between schemes and acquirers and so on and so forth. And regulation came in and opened up that market. So now if you go here in Lagoa Rodrigo de Freitas, there are entrepreneurs selling food in the street and accepting cards. And to accept cards, you have to set an account. So these guys have been, banked. So there was a huge population, a huge fraction of entrepreneurs in Brazil that were unbanked. And through the process of accepting electronic payment methods through acquirers that were entering. So mainly, the new players in acquiring were the guys who brought in these guys to the system. So these guys were banked. So they had to set an account. And now with an account, they can have PIX. So as Deputy Governor Pinho de Mello mentioned, so PIX is an account-to-account type of payment. You have to have an account, but these guys already have an account. So you have 700 institutions that are connected to the backbone of PIX at Central Bank. And those are not financial institutions. Those are many of those are payment institutions who provide accounts and enable these guys to receive, electronic payments. So again, history learns. I'm not a historian. I'm a theoretical economist, but I have to admit that history teaches us a lot of stuff. So what happened in payments is really, a good example of what can happen if you open up the financial system, if you implement efficiently open bank, and if the infrastructure really works, if the pipes are working well, connected to all the places and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think there's a way of looking at the issue of the unbanked, right? Because in a way, the question is regarding unbanked. But if you segment the population between, you have banked population, you have the unbanked, but you also have like kind of underbanked population. People that do have a bank account, but seldomly use that bank account. You use only once or twice a month, even less, because it's quite expensive for you to actually use a bank account and transfer money, withdraw money. In a sense, PIX, I think, will increase a lot the actual usage of bank accounts of that population which is underbanked, because well, now it's free, right? So you can make a wire transfer. Before you had to pay, now it's for free. There's also João can actually chime in on that, but I understand that merchants will be able to actually act as a cash distributor next year. So I think that will lower the cost for you to actually withdraw money. So you won't, because you won't be required to withdraw money from the traditional ATM operators. So in a sense, what I see, it's not the unbanked, but it's these underbanked population that will actually become banked. And not just that, there were also all the programs from the government regarding Caixa, for example. So there is this emergency payments that they're making. So and I think that is kind of making more people actually open up a bank account, but the risk is that they will continue to be underbanked. But I understand that this new pipes, this new infrastructure will actually make it easier for them to actually use that bank account and operate that bank account on a daily basis.
And access is very important. Let me add to what Thiago just said. So he mentioned that merchants can serve as an ATM. So you can have what we have in the US, for instance, the cashback, right? So that's one way in which competition will kick in. But I mean, the interoperability of PIX will allow, for instance, you to withdraw money from an ATM from Bank A using a QR code. So again, we don't even foresee the ways in which competition will kick in, because you allow cash back in supermarkets, but again, the infrastructure and the pipe and rules will allow you to use the same infrastructure, which is not the new infrastructure, but making these two pipes to connect you can, withdraw money from an ATM with a QR code using Pix. So the way interoperability will be designed can be inductive of more competition with the old infrastructure. So breaking barriers. So it's fascinating.
I think Director João Manoel has a time constraint, so I will thank him for his participation. Vinicius, Thiago, not sure if you guys have a few more moments for
I do have
two additional questions. Director João Manoel, any final notes before we end?
Just very quickly, thanks a lot, John Wells. Thanks to the Brazilian American Chamber of Commerce. I apologize that I have to rush off. Maybe there was some problem in the scheduling here. Again, it was a great pleasure. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you so much for your participation. It was an honor to have you here today with us. Thiago, can you also stay for a couple more questions?
Sure.
Okay, John, would you like to go ahead? I know that John Welsh has a question also.
Thank you to all you. And João Manuel left, but thank as well to him. Thank you, Thiago and Vinicius. I have a question. I am a bit of an historian on this, and you've talked about the cost of transaction costs, right? Brazil is the champion in speed because of inflation, but in terms of clearing transactions, but not in terms of costs, as you well outlined. And then you're talking about mainly consumer finance, but the traditional way that companies, especially retail companies, finance themselves was through accounts receivable discounts duplicatas. What implications will this have? It seems like the collateral that they were using for discounting will go away in some way or another, right? So, and the banks were the ones that collected on these, like when you made payments over time or something like that, and that's the way the merchants mainly finance those parcelamentos. So, I just wonder what your thoughts were on the credit side to companies, because I know that's another major focus of the central bank and has been a major focus in Brazil forever, I think.
So I can,
yeah.
I guess I can start. So you mentioned duplicatas and discount of duplicatas. There's a brand new regulation in Brazil that will empower businesses to use their duplicatas in a way to get, a broader set of offers on that instrument as collateral for loans. That is coming out next year, if I'm not mistaken. So the same type of regulation that the central bank launched for receivables of card schemes, they replicated to duplicatas. So there will be electronic registries in which the duplicatas will be registered, and their user of guarantees have to be reflected in those registries. So in a way, you will combine security, because those duplicatas will be publicly visible as being given as collateral to a loan, to a bank, or to whatever player. And at the same time, the regulation is open and the infrastructure will be open, so more players can access those duplicatas and provide loans using duplicatas as collateral. But I guess your question regards the use, the introduction of PIX and how it will compete with other payment schemes. And on such payment schemes, you have credits products that use those receivables as collateral. So I guess one natural step here is for the central bank to encompass to the regulation that disciplines the use of receivables for collateral or for as collateral or for discounts, to encompass PIX receivables. So you have the FUMASA, right? So the FUMASA is pretty much the use of future sales as collateral for a loan. So the fact that you have instant settlement doesn't mean that you cannot use PIX receivables, future receivables, FUMASA as collateral for loans. So I'm not sure that PIX will substitute, will disrupt other means of payment. So I guess we'll compete with debits, but will not compete with credit payments, because there are advantages. You have your miles program, you can pay in 30 days, you can use installments and so on and so forth. I don't think there will be competition there. But in any case, you can use your future sales in Pix, and regulation and the possibility of registering those future sales in these infrastructures that are being built to, you know, extend those loan credits to Pix as well. So Pix Fumaça, we should, it's a pity that Deputy Governor Pinho de Mello left, but there's a suggestion that I leave here, Pix Fumaça.
Great, thank you very much, Vinicius. And those rates are well down from where they used to be, but they're still extremely high, and especially in terms of where inflation is, where the Selic is, et cetera. So the spreads are still high. So let me turn it back to Larissa. Thank you very much. That's a great answer.
Sure. Thank you, John. I think one additional question. Vinicius mentioned the bright future that we have, and I already heard Thiago talking about that in another instance. Beyond open banking, I see that other regions are already talking about open data or open finance. How do you see the development of this initiative for Brazil in the near future? Will be able to use the infrastructure, the pipes that Thiago mentioned, for sharing other types of data beyond payments and financial data? Thiago, maybe if you can take the lead on this one, and then after we can hear Vinicius.
Sure. Yeah, in a sense, the Brazilian Central Bank decided on a broader scope than other jurisdictions, right? So in a sense, we are already in a world implementing open finance and not open banking, I would say, right? Because even like insurance, which is not a banking product, it's a financial product, but not a banking product. You have investments. So you have other products in the scope of the Brazilian open banking. So in a sense, it's already open finance. But it's still, is it enough? I don't think it's enough. So I think there is still more things to be built on those pipes on the financial sector. For example, portability of credit lines. I know this is for Vinicius here, that it's an endearing side, right? So even the central bank has already mentioned that they want to build more things on top of those pipes. For credit portability is one clear example. So there's still things to be built on the financial space, but I do see that there's space for other things. So telco data, social media data, internet data. So I think there are many things in terms of opportunity there. We know there is the Brazilian GDPR, right? The LGPD. There is the new agency, just assign people there to the data protection agency in Brazil. And I understand that there is a broader scope. I don't know if they're going to decide to use the open banking pipes that we're building now. It is certainly capable of supporting that kind of infrastructure. Actually, in the UK, they decided already to have an architecture that would allow for more data and more different participants to be plugged in. And in a sense, the architecture that we're building here, it will allow for a broader scope as well. But way too early to take a guess on when, how, what on that sense. I think still early. On the broader finance applications, the central bank has already made a very clear statement that it's a living organism. It's a larger scope than the jurisdiction, than other jurisdictions, but they want to broaden even further.
Now, that's very interesting question. So let me add on what Thiago said and target the far future. So and I hope it comes earlier than later, if possible. So again, the Lei Geral de Proteção de Dados says that the data is yours, and you're the owner of the data, and you can share to whoever you want, the way you want. we need to build the pipes and the rules that govern this data sharing. But this is very critical question, and not only for competition. So there was a very nice piece by Francis Fukuyama this weekend about how you can handle problems that we see as problems of our societies and democracy through making APIs of big techs open and allowing for some sort of editing, journalistic editing, I mean, which is similar to what information aggregators do in open banking. So what he was proposing as a way to try and solve a very important and big question that we face today as society is to proceed like the open banking regulation. Open the APIs, allow for some sort of editing of information and screening of information, of filtering of information. So it's really important question, and I guess we're in the right way. So it isn't different for other challenges. We have a challenge in Brazil, which is a challenge to foster competition. We have a challenge in our societies, which is how to make sure that things like fake news do not propagate and so on and so forth. So maybe opening up the APIs and allowing access for those APIs and allowing a guy to screen and filter is the way to mitigate those problems. Regulation, transfer economics from these big techs to these players who do the filtering. So it's always about good regulation, about access, and about governance. So these are the three pillars. No solution out of that.
Thank you, Thiago and Vinicius. You know, we work together very closely in several initiatives, even though I'm always very happy and excited with the opportunity to listen to you. It always gives me this positive impression that we are moving forward in a great direction, a more inclusive one, with better services, focus on the users. So it's all, for me, it's always great to have the opportunity to listen to both of you. I think we still have a couple of questions in the Q&A, but we are going beyond 1.5 hours now, 1.5 hour now. So if my suggestion is for us to take these questions to you guys by email after that, and we can then send the answers to the audience. So we can close before lunchtime here in Brazil and before our audience in New York go and start their days. John, I want to thank you again for this opportunity, for asking us to join this panel and to have the chance to listen to those great panelists. And with that, I will transfer the floor to you to make the final words.
Those of you who sent messages, we'll have them, but one was anonymous. So if you would send us the email, but I think we'll put it to all the people that attended. So that's a very great idea. Thank you very much, Larissa. Thank you, João, Manoel, who's in absentia. Thank you, Vinicius and Thiago as well. Really a great discussion. We'll certainly be following on to this in the new year. Thank you all for joining. I would also like to thank again Mattos Filho for their sponsorship. Before we close, I wanted to remind you all that we will have our end of year holiday party next week on Wednesday, 16th of December at 3 p.m. Of course, it will be remote by Zoom, but we have a couple sort of surprises in there, so very good. But until then, stay healthy and in good spirits. Thank you very much.